This is Anna Patterson with the North Carolina Housing Coalition. Thank you for joining us this morning for our housing call. And without further ado, I will turn it over to our Director of Housing Policy, Stephanie Watkins Cruz.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you all are having a great week so far. Going to go ahead and kick it off. The top three things we're going to emphasize this morning. The first is that it is a great time to set up a meeting with your members of Congress or your your representatives and senators at the North Carolina General Assembly because state and federal legislators are currently home on recess. Second thing is that for the first time in over a decade, the Senate Banking Committee recently actually advanced a bipartisan housing package with unanimous support. And then the third is just a heads up that you can actually register and tune in to the next virtual Governor's Advisory Committee on Western North Carolina meeting on August 8th, which is this Friday at 10 a.m. Moving right into federal updates, we really believe that now is a perfect time to either restart, refresh, or sort of reboot your advocacy and engagement efforts with your members of Congress. So we actually are asking you to take action and urge your members of Congress to provide increased investments in affordable housing and homelessness resources in fiscal year 26. When the members of Congress return, they have about a month to pass either a budget or what it's looking like will most likely happen, passing a short-term stopgap spending bill before the new federal fiscal year begins on October 1st. So it's a great time to advocate for increased investments in affordable housing and homelessness resources for whatever stopgap spending bill or new fiscal year budget they might be working on. Again, when they're on resource, that means they come home. And so it's a great time to have in district meetings. Earlier this week, the Senate Banking Committee unanimously passed the Road to Housing Act of 2025. Actually, this is last week. This legislation actually was led by Chair Tim Scott, Republican out of South Carolina, and Ranking Member Elizabeth Warren, a Democrat out of Massachusetts. Representing the committee's first bipartisan housing markup in over a decade, which I think says a lot. The act includes over 40 different provisions and actually seeks to expand and preserve supply, increase access and affordability, and reduce homelessness. It actually takes a lot of parts out of several other bills and kind of combines them into one, showing a really sort of comprehensive and intentional approach to all the aspects that you would need to address when addressing the housing crisis. In addition, the legislation would permanently authorize CDBG DR funding, the Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Funding, which is huge, and would reauthorize the Home Investment Partnerships Program and the PRICE Program for manufactured housing. There is a section by section analysis of the bill that we're going to include in the call notes for you to look at. But definitely want to lift up the fact that not only is this an act, a piece of legislation that has bipartisan support in Congress, but also has support from groups across the housing ecosystem. So support from groups including the National Association of Realtors, the National Alliance to End Homelessness, the National Apartment Association, Enterprise Community Partners, and the National Association of Home Builders. These are just a few of the large groups that are voicing support and coming together to show support for the act. In the National Low-Income Housing Coalition's analysis of the bill, there are some concerns voiced about the extension of two HUD programs in particular, the Moving to Work demonstration and the Rental Assistance demonstration. As always, policy comes with pros and cons, and so it just is another look at how to consider the bill in its entirety. And as this legislation continues to move later in the fall, we will make sure to provide further updates on its progress. But I do, again, just want to emphasize how this piece of legislation is comprehensive in the sense that it tries to address the housing need from a variety of angles, which is really important. As we continue to see the need for housing grow, cost of living increase, homelessness increase, increasing across our state, across our country, it's really important that there's legislation that not only brings investment to the table, but that brings best practices to the table that address different aspects of the need, the supply, the stability, the systems. even the subsidy, right? And so this is a really good example of a bill that is trying to do all of that. So hopefully we can have more positive news as it moves, and we'll see what happens when they come back from recess. Moving on to state updates in the disaster recovery front. There's a virtual meeting this Friday, August 8th at 10 a.m. from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. It's for the Governor's Advisory Committee on Western North Carolina Recovery. The public can register for the meeting using a link that we'll include in the call notes. The agenda in particular for this week includes more updates from Director Matt Calabria of the Governor's Recovery Office for Western North Carolina, as well as presentations on floodplain mapping, the agricultural disaster crop loss grant programs, and the critical role of legal services in disaster recovery, which I'm really glad that those are getting so that's getting some attention, particularly with the times that we're living in. Even though there will not be an opportunity for public comment, you can send questions and feedback to wncrecovery@nc.gov. So we'll include that in the call notes as well for you. And then the next meeting that's in person, but it'll also be streamed virtually, will take place on Monday, September 15th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the Blue Ridge Community College in Flat Rock, if you are unable to tune in this Friday. Our colleagues at the Southern Economic Advancement Project, or SEAP, are launching a new initiative offering pro bono disaster recovery grant writing and strategy advice for public and nonprofit sector entities across the Southeast. So these are great partners of ours. We really enjoyed working with them and getting to know them a bit better. We were part of putting together a convening with them, including from organizations across the Southeast earlier this year. And so it's been really wonderful to see how they are trying to rise and meet the need through collaborative ways and kind of share expertise. So if you are interested or know organizations that are interested in being a part of, or that organizations that could benefit from pro bono disaster recovery grant writing and strategy advice, we'll include a link in the call notes for you to be able to learn more. There are some interesting headlines coming off of the recent adjournment from the General Assembly. One in particular from NC Newsline talks about House Bill 907, which is a bill that proposes sort of this all-in-one disaster response agency. And so we'll include some of these headlines in the call notes for you of should North Carolina create an all-in-one disaster response agency, and what lawmakers currently seem to be discussing or thinking about in terms of disaster recovery at the state level. Moving on to more legislative updates. Last week, the North Carolina General Assembly returned and held votes to override several of Governor Josh Stein's recent vetoes, as well as a vote on a handful of legislative items. Both chambers passed a joint adjournment resolution, and this outlines their schedule for the remainder of the year, as well into the beginning of next year and the beginning of the short legislative session, which typically takes place in even years. So in 2026, it looks like short session will begin around April 21st, if I remember correctly. In addition to voting to override 8 of Governor Stein's 14 vetoes, the North Carolina General Assembly also approved a $2.3 billion stopgap spending bill, since the full 2-year budget still remains stalled beyond the July 1st deadline. Some legislators are saying that there's a possibility for more mini budgets to happen in the coming months. The House also voted separately to approve legislation that would establish a new independent disaster recovery commission. This is sort of what I was mentioning just a few moments ago. In House Bill 907, the North Carolina Recovery and Resiliency Act, the proposal is for the creation of a statewide commission and funding structure that is supposed to improve disaster preparedness and implement long-term recovery separate from the general fund. This bill is expected to go through several committees over the next several months, but it is a reflection of sort of the ongoing efforts and conversations around streamlining recovery operations happening at the state level. Moving forward, the North Carolina General Assembly will convene on a monthly basis through November 5th, with December 16th looking like it'll be the final kind of convening for 2025. They will come back towards the end of August. And as always, we'll continue to keep you posted on what they discuss and what is up for consideration. Unfortunately, the mini budget did not include anything for the workforce housing loan program. It did, however, restore HOP funding for the Healthy Opportunity pilot programs that already exist. Last week, we released sort of a brief summary of this legislative session, try to be really high level, sort of just an overview of what we noticed and organized it by our key policy agenda areas. So we'll link that in the call notes for you as well. But later this week, we'll be downloading a bit more of a longer resource that you can download and kind of look into each bill. So be on the lookout for it in Friday's housing policy updates email. There are a lot of events and reports and resources as always. Going to lift up a few of the reports. The Urban Institute is releasing a report talking about bringing the housing shortage into sharper focus and the different elements that that come with trying to address the housing shortage. The Joint Center for Housing Studies out of Harvard has a report on home repairs and how home repairs are increasingly out of reach for many lower income homeowners, which ends up putting in danger or endangering their stability in their homes. And then the Pew Charitable Trust released a report showing that new housing is starting to slow rent growth for some older, more affordable units, but not all. Webinars and trainings. There are a lot of good nerd out opportunities for you coming up on August 12th from 2 to 3 p.m. There will be a webinar hosted by the National Income Housing Coalition, Protecting Immigrant Families and Just Solutions Collective on immigration and disaster recovery, different rights, access, and kind of where do we go from here. There will also be, there's a free online course that will be free until August 22nd, hosted by the National Alliance to End Homelessness on caring for older adults experiencing homelessness for system leaders. Many of you may or may not know that the largest kind of cohort of people experiencing homelessness that's growing are people over the age of 55. So if you're interested in this free online course, we'll have the link to that in the call notes as well. And then at the UNC School of Government on October 16th, there will be an affordable housing seminar looking at different tools, strategies, and case studies for local government leadership. There is a registration cost of $265. It will be in person and it will be in Chapel Hill. If you are interested in a tour of CASA's King Ridge Permanent Supportive Housing Development in Raleigh, the North Carolina Women's Affordable Housing Network is giving a tour this Thursday, August 7th from 8 to 10 a.m. It's $10 per person to support breakfast for residents. Space is limited, so there might not be any more space left, but we have the registration link in the call notes just in case. And we couldn't let this call end without reminding you once again that early bird registration for the 2025 North Carolina Affordable Housing Conference is open. And make sure you get our best rate by registering before the close of business on August 29th at 5 p.m. We have our agenda up and we're continuing to update it with more information about speakers and different sessions. And so we really look forward to seeing you on September 30th through October 1st at the Raleigh Convention Center for the 2025 North Carolina Affordable Housing Conference. It's really crazy to believe that it's almost here. And with that, I will let you all go. I hope you have a great rest of your week. As always, please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions or you would like us to dive into anything in particular. And we will talk to you next time.